My name's Steve Serbic. I've been in the fire service since 1990. I'm currently an assistant chief of operations. An operations chief's main goal is to manage third and fourth alarm calls as an incident commander. The majority of my day is spent in the office. We help employees when they're injured, they have to return to work, we do attendance management. But the biggest part of my job is morale. And I've traveled to over 60 countries and it's consistent in every place that I've gone. The number one issue when it comes to morale is mental health. People don't want to be looked upon as weak. They want to come to work, do their job, and go home and hope that nobody notices. Every single employee has to be treated differently. And it's not just from trauma they've seen on the job or experienced, it's things that are happening in their home life or even in their past. We in the fire service have led the way when it's come to clinical counseling, when it's come to addressing those issues, but we're still battling the stigma. That's what we're trying to change. And that same stigma exists in every organization. That is what we need to change. Most organizations that recognize when they have employees who are suffering from depression and they assist them and help them build resiliency and get stronger, they get a more efficient, more engaged, and more productive employee. It's proven. The picture you're looking at behind me is a tower crane that goes 450 feet into the air. That is an actual call that I manage as an incident commander. There is a man up there and he's pacing back and forth and he's threatening to jump. We brought in high-angle rescue teams, we brought in crisis negotiator, we brought in medical staff. We did everything we could to intervene in that attempted suicide. Unfortunately, after 4 hours, that man was successful in taking his own life when he jumped. We gathered our crews together. We used the policy that we built over the last 3 decades. We talked about the call right there on site. We had a moment of debriefing. We took those crews and we had them CIS, and they were met by a peer support counselor and they were debriefed about the call. A week later, they had a critical incident review by WorkSafe. So we put everything in place to help those employees from the trauma that they've seen. We did a good job that night, but unfortunately we were unsuccessful, and that's what our employees had to understand. This is what our job is. This is what we do. And it's not always a successful outcome. But when it's not, we deal with those issues so there isn't a cost to the organization later, and it's not perfect. There is no magic when it comes to mental health, but we do the best we can do. The fire service is very consistent on how it's built its programs and how it's attacked the stigma around mental health. I was recently asked to speak to a construction company. I got a phone call. They had a suicide attempt by one of their trades on the 22nd floor. So they called me and asked me if I could help them build some policy to help prevent that from happening again. So I went to their head office and spoke to their admin staff. I spoke to their HR, and then we rented a ballroom and I spoke to all their safety officers and their site supervisors. I talked to them about suicide intervention, I talked to them about policy, and I explained to them it's their role to get involved and intervene. The interesting part about the conversation with this construction company is the safety officer that was involved in that suicide attempt was in the room. He put up his hand and he asked a question. He asked what tools are available for someone like him to be able to go up to that floor and deal with that person who's attempted to take his own life. We broke down a step-by-step process on how he could do that. And one of the things he asked me was, what do you do about anxiety? Because he said he didn't want to go. And I told him there was a simple breathing technique that first responders use that he could learn over the course of a few days. And if he practiced it, he would always have that tool. He was super excited that there was something available. After that employee spoke, everything changed. I got another question and another question. And that's how powerful a presentation is when you talk about mental health. Talking about mental health is difficult. But when you're talking to an organization and a group of people and one person is willing to open up, you have the power of the room. They ask you a question and more will follow. Your organization will grow from that experience. Your employees will understand what it's like to intervene when it comes to mental health. One of the things about a suicide attempt is people are terrified because they don't have the tools or the skill to deal with it. And one of the things, if it's not in a construction tower, if it's in an office, or maybe it's even at somebody's home, all you have to do is sit down beside that person, put your arm around them, and call the crisis line and give them the phone. That is intervention. That's how simple it can be. The policy has been built over decades by other organizations. It's all out there for organizations to use. You can implement a simple plan and simple policy that helps your employees come to work and be more engaged, and they will also understand that their employer is supportive when it comes to mental health. That's the power of talking about mental health.